Hey out there from Rooted at Badger Rock, here we are for our next virtual cooking workshop. We are excited this week to be kicking off Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month with our classes, and we are starting with a recipe for Chinese dumplings. So you can make Chinese dumplings with pork or without. We are going to make a vegetarian version to show you all today. And we are using one of the crops that if you are a gardener, you might be putting in your garden right now, Napa cabbage. So this is what a Napa cabbage looks like. You can grow it yourself easily in Wisconsin, or you can also get it at pretty much any grocery store. If you don't find it at your typical pick and save, you can also check out Asian Midway Foods and some of the specialty grocery stores to find Napa cabbage. So we are going to start with just chopping this cabbage. We're gonna cut up about a cup worth of cabbage and put some salt on it. First, you gotta get the core out of the cabbage. So I'm just gonna cut this cabbage and I'm just gonna cut out this little core. That part is a little bit tough. We don't need to be putting that in our dumplings. And we are just gonna dice it up and we're gonna add some salt to it. Once it's diced and the salt is massaged into the cabbage, that salt is going to pull the water out of the cabbage. And you want to just let the cabbage sit in that salt for maybe 10 minutes or so, just to really get a lot of that moisture drawn out of the cabbage so that your dumplings aren't too wet. Once you get that moisture pulled out of your cabbage, we're not going to show this step today just in the interest of time, but you can press that cabbage then through a colander and just push the cabbage and all the water, extra water will come out the bottom of the colander. You can just discard that salty water and you'll have some cabbage that has been just brined a little bit and some of the moisture taken out. So for salt, we're just going to eyeball it. I'm going to put about a teaspoon worth of salt in here. And you just want to kind of massage it. If you've ever made kimchi or if you've ever made sauerkraut, this is kind of a similar process for that. So that salt's just going to draw out the water. And then we don't cook the cabbage for the dumplings, just the salt releasing some of that water will kind of mimic that cooking process a little bit, just to get some of the moisture out so that you can make your dumplings. So just massaging that in there. And there are lots of ways to make dumplings. This is just one of them. And you can put almost any ingredient you want in a dumpling and it will most likely be delicious. So just getting that mixed up in there. And then I am going to put the rest of this cabbage aside to use for our classes later this week. And we are going to chop up some shiitake mushrooms. Just clear some of this. Just gonna clear the way. Yep. A shout out to Mari, the videographer of the day. Hello. Let's get these. So shiitake mushrooms are my favorite kind of mushroom to use in a dumpling. And I like to not just slice them, but make them a little bit smaller even, because they're going to be inside a dumpling wrapper. So depending on how big the wrappers you're using and what size dumplings you're making, you might want your ingredients to be a little on the smaller side. So I'm just going to cut these up a little bit. And these dumplings, you fry gently at first, and then you steam them. So the ingredients inside will cook in that way too. If you are using pork in your dumplings or another kind of meat though, you should definitely cook that ahead of time, just to make sure that it's thoroughly cooked all the way through before you eat your dumplings. All right, and then we're going to take some green onions, something you can also get fresh out of your garden around this time of year. Green onions and scallions, and just thinly slice them as well. These are really fun to make with kids too, because the wrapping process is really fun for making the dumplings. and just to introduce kids to a different kind of flavor profile than they might be used to as well. All right, so we have our shiitakes and we have our green onions, and normally I will press this cabbage through a colander, like I mentioned, to get all of the water out of here, and then I would mix in these ingredients in with the cabbage. So look at how fresh and delicious that already looks. And next comes one of my favorite ingredients on this planet, sesame oil. So delicious. It adds such a unique flavor. You can get sesame oil from any grocery store or any Asian market as well. And it just adds a certain something that I don't know how you would get from any substitute. Oops, fresh bottle, gotta open it up. We usually use fresh ginger root too, but just in the interest of time, we are gonna use some some powdered ginger root. I'm struggling here.
Is it like a pull off the top?
Yeah, got you. Learn how to open your containers. So I'm just going to put 1 to 2 tablespoons of sesame oil in here with the mushrooms, with the green onions, and we're going to put a little bit of ginger. So probably if you're using fresh ginger, you can use about a tablespoon of fresh grated ginger. You just peel it and then you grate it. We usually use a cheese grater to grate it. And since we're using dried ginger, you need a little less because that is a lot of ginger root right there, dried and powdered. So I'm just going to put a half or even less, maybe even a quarter teaspoon in here if you're using dried ginger. You can put some black pepper as well if you'd like, and just mix it up. And a little bit of salt. But since I salted the cabbage already, we're not going to add salt for this step. And then once that's mixed up, comes the next step. So dumplings are very fast too. If you get pre-made wrappers, if you make your own dumpling wrappers, that's a whole nother level. But we're going to keep it simple this week with our classes and with ourselves. And we pre-bought dumpling wrappers. I got these from Asian Midway Foods. They come in many different sizes. This is the smallest size. And you can just get yourself some pre-made dumpling wrappers, save yourself a little stress and trouble, and just put a little, like a tablespoonful of ingredients into the middle of your dumpling. And then you're going to use your finger and dip it in some water and just get the edge of that dumpling wrapper wet with your finger. And then you're going to wrap the wrapper around the filling and kind of crimp it with your fingers around the edge like this. You can use your fingers or you can use a fork. And sometimes if you don't seal it completely, some of the insides come out, still delicious. So here is a little dumpling ready to go. And what we're going to do is fry it in some oil first. I'm just going to put a little bit of oil in here for the frying step. And really, you can get a bunch of dumplings going at a time. We'll get a few going so that you can see the whole process here. And you're just going to cook them on one side for about 5 minutes or so or less. Keep an eye on them. And when they start turning golden brown on one side, you're going to flip it over and brown it up on the other side. And then add some water to your pan and bring that water up to a simmer. Cover your dumplings and let them steam. So here's dumpling number 2. Oh, and it smells so good. It's so simple, but so good. And then for a dipping sauce, we also can keep it really simple. with just a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of sesame oil, and a little bit of rice wine vinegar. And that will be the perfect sauce to dip your dumplings when they're done. Okay. We'll just get 3 of them going in here. You can see they're happily bubbling away. And just make sure you have a tongs, and you can just check the bottom every now and again to see if they are ready to flip. So once we have our dumplings going too, that is the time that I might put together my sauce. So the sauce is just really simple. It's just 3 ingredients. And we are just going to put about 1/3 cup of soy sauce, about a teaspoon or so of sesame oil, and a teaspoon or so of rice vinegar. And like anything you cook, you can taste it and see what you think, and then adjust, add a little bit more of whichever flavor you feel like needs a little extra boost. And you'll dip your dumplings in, and that will be a delicious meal. So they're easy to make as a vegetarian meal. They're easy to make as a vegan meal. They're also easy to make with meat. So you can really adjust your dumplings to your taste and your family's diet, or whichever crowd you happen to be cooking for. And I'm just going to peek at the bottom of these. Okay, you can see they're starting to get a little bit bubbly and slightly brown. That's good. That's what we're going for. And if you have other ways you like to prepare dumplings and dumpling filling, feel free to pop them in the comments. We are always excited to learn new ways to make things around here. Yeah. So I'm just going to flip them over, let them cook a little bit on the other side. And you can see one of these dumpling wrappers is opening a little bit. Don't panic. It's okay. It will still be delicious. And if they're not sticking together, you might need to add a little bit more water to the dumpling wrapper along the edge before you pinch it shut. You can also use forks to crimp it together, and that sometimes helps it hold together a little bit better too. So I would just wait until these are well browned on each side. And then you're going to add about a cup of water to the pan and just get a lid on it. And we're going to just cover it and let it just continue to simmer once the water's added for about 7 to 10 minutes. Check them after you cook them for that long, and if they're warmed through and they're golden brown on each side and they smell delicious, they are ready to eat. So this is a fast recipe, delicious recipe, a healthy recipe, and it is a great recipe for kicking off our celebration of Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So stay tuned through the month of May. We'll have two workshops every week with guests from the community coming in to share different recipes, different projects that they're working on, different initiatives around food and farming and culturally relevant meals. So stay tuned, and we have a great month ahead. I'm just going to pour this water in here. Whoop. Cover them up, and you can really fill your pan with dumplings. Pack as many in there as possible so that you can have a nice full meal by the time your simmering is done. So I hope you all enjoy your dumplings. If you try them at home, let us know what you thought, and we will see you all next time.